On today's episode, we dive into deep with myself and Neal Driscoll. Could Jalen Ramsey be dealt at the NFL draft, or is this something that's going to happen after the NFL draft with a 2026 focus? We are going to talk about that. Are there too many holes for the Miami Dolphins to fill as we head into the 2025 NFL draft? That's a discussion we got to have. Plus, we'll talk about a whole lot more. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score. Field on the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it over the touchdown. He's in. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Better late than never, as they always say, especially as we get closer to the draft. I know everyone is tuning in to see what we got to say. And hey, that draft coverage on this channel will continue tomorrow. I will be live around lunchtime while you're eating your turkey sandwich or your veggie sandwich, whatever you are indulging in. Tune in to Finside the NFL. I'll be live with Kyle Krabs. We will talk about the Dolphins, the state of the Dolphins, everything going on, and especially the NFL draft. I'll be live this weekend with my quarterback big board as we wrap up my live video big format big boards. Every other big board that didn't make video format will be given to Patreons and channel members, so they'll see how I shake out the rest of the positions in the draft. Next week, obviously, we'll be live for the draft days 1 and day 2, Thursday and Friday. Saturday, we will recap day 3. Anyways, and then Tuesday, it's looking like that's when we and Neal are aiming for our annual mock draft that we do every year. Well, it's like 4th or 5th year I think we've done this. So we'll be live for that, but that might be later on in the evening, anywhere between 8:30 to 9:30. Expect us on Tuesday night. Wednesday night, I will be live on this channel with Doug for episode 4 of the starting lineup. Obviously, the night before the draft, that'll be very draft-centric as well. So we got you covered over here on Finside the NFL, and that was an absolute mouthful. But, Neal, a lot has transpired last time we and you sat up here in front of these people. Jalen Ramsey, it's now confirmed, something we knew not too long after this was all going down. I mean, your gut told you right away. You didn't have to talk to anyone, and your gut was like, it's Ramsey. And then got confirmation through the grapevine, and I hit you up, and I said, yeah, you're right. It is Ramsey. And here we are. How you feeling as we're about to enter a new chapter? Because your take on the Ramsey situation might surprise someone. It's far more glass half full than it is empty with you, no?
Yeah, man, and never a dull moment to be a Dolphins fan. You got to expect the unexpected. But, you know, it's for me, it's one of those things that You went all in. You traded draft capital. You tried to build this dream team. You tried to do what the Rams did. That's what they tried to replicate, and it didn't work. So I think for them, it makes sense to take inventory of what you have and what you're paying and have conversations with certain players, especially if those players don't see eye to eye with the philosophy of everybody on board. And I do view Jalen Ramsey as one of the best players on that defense, but I also do view him as a guy that has already played his best football, and, making him the highest paid cornerback in football probably was a little premature at the time the Dolphins did it. I know they wanted to keep him happy and keep him here.
Yeah.
But for me, this is what the Patriots did better than anyone else with Bill Belichick, is get out of contracts a year early rather than a year late. And, I think since we acquired Ramsey, obviously he got that injury in training camp and we didn't have him for the first half of the season. He came back, had 3 picks, was probably the sole reason we won that one game against the Raiders. Played good at times last year, but I don't think ever really reached that peak that a lot of us were hoping that he reached. And I think at this point, for where the Dolphins are and where they're going, and for where Jalen Ramsey is in his career, it makes sense to have these conversations. Now, I do think it was a little unorthodox that we had a press conference to tell everyone that we're going to shop Jalen Ramsey. Like, that to me was like kind of
that was their pre-draft. You know how they usually do it, on the Tuesday. They just did it a week early, which was really weird, bro. Neal, I'm not gonna lie to you, and it's already cut you off, but I gotta say this to you. I thought before, because I was like, I expect that pre-draft on the Tuesday or Wednesday, like normally. Brother, I thought, is this guy about to shift to a different position in the franchise, and Champ Kelly and Marvin Allen are about to take the reins for the draft and the rest of the year? Is that what's about to happen? And then, I hit up a few people and they were like, no, it's a draft press conference. You know what I mean?
I think that press conference is coming next February with Chris Greer going to a different position. Yeah, but, it was unorthodox to me, the whole thing. But, this is the time where you want to do it, and I don't think we're going to get some lucrative package. I've seen people say, "Oh, it'd be great to get it." We're not getting a second-round pick for Jalen Ramsey.
No.
That I don't even think that's
not
on the
happening.
radar.
Yeah,
so
no.
I think it's one of those.
Be happy with a 4th. Do a backflip if you get a 4th.
Yeah, if you get a 3rd, it's kind of a miracle. I think it could be a late pick and a player, but it is what it is. Now that it's out there, I feel like you almost have to make this trade happen. I think you don't have that press conference unless you had some meaningful conversations in place. So I do anticipate this gets done before next Thursday. And look, I will say I wasn't enamored by Chris Greer's press conference at any way, but I did like what he said about.
Do you think he was lying?
I think anytime
about the Ramsey not asking for a trade, do you think he was lying about that?
Yeah. I think he was playing the company line. I think there's always a little lying. I think there's always a little misinformation. I mean, they even hear when the Ravens have their annual draft presser here, they call it the liar's lunch. That's what they. So I don't think it's anything about obviously there's a lot of leverage that you're trying to create in the draft, but I do think it gets done. I don't think it's going to be for any amazing, haul of draft picks. I think it's a move to get rid of him, get his contract off the books as soon as possible. I see that. Man, I will say this. I do think Baltimore is a team that has a level of interest in Jalen Ramsey. I don't think they're going to give us a huge offer, but I do think I would put them as one of the 5 teams I think that are involved in the Ramsey situation. So we'll see.
Don't you want to move him to the NFC?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I at this point, man, I hate to say it, but the Dolphins are going to have to hit a home run draft for me to become a contender. So I'm really focused on now. I don't really care about results next year. I want to see this team have a solid plan of building through the draft. That's what I want to see. I want them to have as many picks as they can. I want them to have agility in their salary cap space. But I don't want them to be the splash team anymore. I do enjoy it, and it's fun, and we cover it. And we had, I think 2023 was the most fun I ever had as a Dolphins fan, to be honest, with all the trades and stuff we were making. But I want them to be the team that just drafts well, develops well, and retains their own players. And this is the great draft for them to get started with 10 picks. And I think
regime to expect that from, though. No?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, like, at least they can even start the foundation of it. But look, I think they have 10 now, and I think they could have as many as 12 picks when next Thursday kicks off. So I'm really excited about the draft. I'm not worried about the results. I just want to see that they're learning. And I will say, I think this Ramsey move, when it happens, is a step in the right direction. I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way that you're better for trading Ramsey. I'm not like, I don't care about winning next year. Like, I hate to say it like that, but I don't think the Dolphins are a contender. I want to see them get out of any contracts they want. Look, I think we were the first show to talk about this. I wanted to trade Tyreek at last year's deadline, and I wanted to trade him after the offseason before that. Like, I wanted to trade Tyreek for a while because I just think you can't win with guys like him. And I think,
Yeah, you were saying it when it wasn't popular.
yeah, and the reason is I think he's a great football player, man. Like, it's not about that, but I think he is the most unserious guy maybe in the entire league. The way he conducts himself, it's all like a game, and I just think that's the next domino that has to fall, and I think it will do in due time. And the unfortunate thing about it is, I think whatever we get for Ramsey is going to be a lot more than we're going to get for Tyreek. No one wants Tyreek right now.
Yeah,
No one wants him. Like, I think Tyreek ends up being just a straight out release at some point to get him out of the organization.
You know what really worries me about Tyreek? I've said this up here. You know, like, I think I've said it. I know I've said it privately, but I'm pretty sure I've said it up here. What worries me with this situation is his wife's leaving him. His personal life is falling apart. We've all been in relationships that fall apart, and it feels like, you know, that's the making of going to a dark place, and South Florida is the last place you want someone going to, that dark space. You know what I mean? Like, and that just has the making of, if things don't go right professionally on the field, you thought last season was bad and a distraction. You know, what would this year be if things aren't going right on the field for this guy? Things aren't going right personally off the field for this guy. You know, that just has the making of an implosion of like epic proportions, where a lot of us just look back and be like, should have traded him, even if it would have been taking the dead cap. Like, you know, I know, and I've talked about this, I don't believe they think that trading him is addition by subtraction, but it's starting to feel like it really is addition by subtraction. And this team, you know, just from a locker room standpoint, could be better off. Now, can you replace 17 to 1,800 yards? No
chance.
But
Yep.
but I will tell you the one thing that I love about this draft, and you know, especially if you add another pick in the top 100, Tet to me is the only wide receiver one. Like, the rest, like when you get to like Emeka Buka, Luther Burden, you know, Jaden Higgins, they're fringe 1-2 guys. And then, you know, I think you could say the same for like Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel has a lot of potential to his game. But then once you know, I think you could say that for like the first, you know, good group of receivers. It's Ted's the clear one. Then it's like a few solid 1 and 2s, you know. Again, I would probably put Igbuka, Higgins, Golden, Burden, Jalen Noel in that category. And then when you get to like Trey Harris, Jalen Royals, Kyle Williams, Jack Besh, now it's like solid number 2s. You know what I mean? So my point is, this is a good draft where if you're looking to move off Jalen Waddle, you're looking to move off Tyreek Hill and you want to make Jalen Waddle the number 1, this is a good draft in the top 100 to find a legitimate, solid fringe 1-2 or pure solid number 2 option to your receiving core. And that would make Waddle the man. And, you know, I would target guys like Tet McMillan, Emeka Buka, you know, Jaden Higgins, you know, I mean, I love Jalen Noel, but I wouldn't target him because of his size. Same with Luther Burden. I'm a little lower on Golden, but like then you get later on, Trey Harris at that size, Jack Bash at 6'1", 214, Savion at the size and the way he moves. I think a really big sleeper in this receiver class who, if you could get him between 116 and 155, I think a great addition. Now, I wouldn't move Tyreek for this guy, but I think Torrey Holton, 6'2", 6'2 and a half, 196, runs a 4.41. I think he would be a perfect fit too. But my point is, there are guys who you're not going to supplement that 1,800 yards from Tyreek, but there are guys you can legitimately lock in with that are fringe 1-2s or solid 2 options to pair with Waddle and Malik and Nick Westbrook. Like, there's options in this draft where, man, if you move off Tyreek, you could find good options, Neal. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and look, the Tyreek thing, it's not going to have a happy ending, man. It's heading to a disaster. If this team starts slow, he's going to be the biggest malcontent there is. He's got a loud mouth. It's just not going to end well. So like as much as I like Nick Westbrook and Kinney, who they added to be paired with Jalen Waddle, wide receiver is another need that this team has, because like you said, you're not going to replace Tyreek Hill, but what you can do is elevate Jalen Waddle. And maybe you're not getting a 1-for-1 there, but you're getting a guy that's young that can do the things Tyreek can do. But you still need, and we've seen the best version of Tua Tagovailoa when he has 2 very capable wide receivers. Yeah. I think the one avenue you want to do this time to do a little bit different than the Tyreek Waddle pairing is, I think you want to, instead of having something that's a little bit redundant, the speed guys that are deep threats, it'd be nice to find, and it doesn't have to be a big body guy, because I think Westbrook and Kinney brings that. But I do think you need a guy who's a savvy route runner that can work the middle of the field and move the chains. And like, Emeka Egbuka is the perfect guy for that. Like, so there are guys that are there that are going to be like that. And, it is important that they, like,
I'll give you 2 sleepers at 13 for me. Emeka Egbuka. Well, I got 2 legitimate sleepers at 13. One of them I'm going to save for the Patreon and channel members, but because it's a guy I've warned people about. Well, Mecca is someone I've warned about, but I'll say but I've got info on someone. But anyways, with no info on anyone and someone I've been saying for months, Emeka Egbuka at 13 is a legitimate sleeper for them, because I'm telling you, bro, they're going to love him, from the route running you mentioned to the blocking. Like, I could see them loving him, and he's
they liked him before the Tyreek shit went awry. Like, that's the truth. They've done work on Emeka Egbuka. I'm positive of that. We talked about it last college football season. Like, he's a guy that fits the mold they want to do. I'm we are dialing into the draft, and I will say that it's funny how this process goes, because I do think what the Dolphins do at 13 is becoming a little clearer. I really do. I think it's corner, and you're saving your guy for the Patreon. The guy that I think would be the one that would like have people's jaws drop, that I think is a real possibility, is Derrick Harmon from Oregon. I think they like him a lot. I think it's way too soon on my board, but I think he's a guy that they like a lot. But yeah, I think it's going to be a corner, and we'll talk more about that when we do our mocks and stuff. But yeah, I 100%. Look, they got to have their eye on the pulse. Like, they can't be naive enough to think that this Tyreek situation is going to end well. So you know what? You got to prepare for life after him.
Yeah.
Oh man,
oh man, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it wouldn't shock me if somebody just threw shit at a wall. Let's say a team like Dallas said, "I'll send you a 5th. Do you have any guts to get rid of Tyreek?" And I know that they said 2 1s. It wouldn't shock me if they found a way to move Tyreek either. I don't think it's imminent by any means, but I do think that the Dolphins are frustrated with Tyreek.
Listen, okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you knew you had teams calling you about Tyreek and you knew you could move him, okay? Let's say I've got reason to believe the NFL is much higher on Kenneth. I've got very solid reason to believe the NFL is much higher on Kenneth Grant.
Isn't that funny how that happens? We've been talking about Kenneth Grant for 3 months being better than Mason Graham.
Yeah, I've got legitimately solid information that the NFL is higher on him than media and analysts are. And so I say that to say this. Let's say Kenneth Grant's gone, Campbell's gone, Membou's gone, Will Johnson's gone, right? Jade, there's a real chance Jade goes in the top 10. Let's say they're gone and someone like Mikael Williams falls and blah, 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 okay? So let's say and Gene T doesn't go in the top 10. Okay, let's say he pushes down 2 and either do Loveland or Warren, all right? So I'm going to tell you this right now. Now, first of all, if that was the situation and all those guys were gone, like the premium guys we want at that position, the guy you could probably twist my arm into easily if we had to pick at 13 would be Donovan Jackson. Now, if you just because he gives that left tackle flexibility, you know what I mean? I think that makes him premium. And I know some NFL teams do legitimately view him as a left tackle. That's why he's going to go in the 20s at the latest. Trust me on that with Donovan. But listen, dude, if they're like, okay, well, it's weapons, right? Like Loveland and Warren and, Gene T are like the BP. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I would take Tet. Like, if you had to, no one's calling to trade up, which I'm sure someone would for Gene T, but no one's calling, blah, 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 blah. Call me crazy, bro, but I would take Tet. And yes, I know you should take Gene T there. 110% you should. That's a top 5 player in the draft, and he failed you. You should take him there, value. But I would take Tet because then I would turn around and I would open the phone and I would open the phones and say, who wants Tyreek? Because that run on wide receiver is going to come. And you take Tet as the insurance. He's the perfect complementary piece to what we're missing to Waddle. And you could scare teams into the run on receivers starting. And now you put Tyreek out there who's better than Emeka Egbuka, who's better than Luther Burden, who's better than Matthew Golden. Because I'm going to tell you this, Neal, I don't get the Matthew Golden wide receiver 1 hype. He ended up being my wide receiver 4 on my big board.
He's my 6, I think. Wide receiver 6 for me.
I don't get it. Okay. But you know where I'm going with this. You've got the better option. So now maybe you can turn what would have been a 5th into a 4th or a 3rd for Tyreek.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. I actually think that when we were talking about the packages for Jalen Ramsey, if there's a way you could parlay it, I don't know if it gets you to 5, but he played in Jacksonville. They need a corner. Could you get 13?
I think they want Mason Graham.
Yeah, I think they're going to take him. That's why
you see the photos. Mason Graham's in Jags gear already. I don't know if you saw the photos.
Yeah, I saw. I would see, rather than getting a 5th or 4th round pick for Ramsey, I'd rather use him as a guy to move up a few spots in this year's draft. That I really would, because I want to make sure that you get a premium player. But I would take Tet over both of the tight ends for sure.
Yeah, he's what we're missing. That's exactly what we're missing. Because Westbrook's gonna be here for a year, bro. I'm not even investing in that.
Yeah, he's not long term at all.
Tet, Waddle, and Malik as your top 3, right? You've got a legitimate X in Tet. You play Waddle at the Z, and you've got your slot guy in Malik. Now you're cooking, bro. And you got, that is what I don't know, bro. When we get to the red zone, the hands, those hands are sticky, bro. Those hands are, I don't even think there's a question about who wide receiver 1 is in this class. I think it's not even close if you want my honest opinion. I think number 2 is Emeka. I think Emeka is super pro ready. I think Emeka and Ted are the most pro ready, easily.
Well, I'll say this. I think the Browns are going to draft Travis Hunter to play receiver, though. I think he's going to play receiver there.
which is crazy because I would start in my corner and play him in wide receiver packages, which is what I've heard like the majority of the NFL thinks. And I've heard the same as you, that I've heard that's the only GM that's dug in that Travis is a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think they're going to take him round 1. I think they're going to take Milroe at the top of round 2, and that's what they're going to roll with. They're
going to ruin your boy, Neal.
I know they are. You know, he'll go do what he's got to do in Cleveland. You know what I mean? It is, but I do think it's like a lot of people are like, oh, it's really hard to predict. I actually think the first 6 picks of this draft are really easy to predict.
Yeah, I think
it's Cam. It's going to be Travis. It's going to be Will Carter at 3.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be Will Campbell at
4. Yeah.
It's going to be Mason Graham at 5. It's going to be Gentry at 6.
And then it's Membou at 7.
I agree. The only thing I think could throw a wrench in that is if they did go Tyler Warren.
I've heard they're locked. I've heard it's
that's what Tony Pauline's been saying is Membou. I know. I've
heard, who was it? It's Membou or someone at that pick.
I saw Jedi Barron, and I was very shocked to see that they'd be interested in Barron. But then the draft starts at 8 to me, because it's like I have Jalen Walker mocked to the Panthers. But if I was the GM, I would take Ted McMillan there to actually give Bryce Young a bona fide wide receiver 1. But I don't think they go that route. I think they're going to look for front 7 of their defense, and then I hope Shedeur does go to the Saints at 9. And then I think the best scenario that could happen, which I think is getting a lot of momentum, is do the Bears take Omarion Hampton at 10? Because if that happens, man, then you're looking at Will Johnson, Kenny Grant. Somebody we want's going to be there. So
see, that's it. I'm telling you right now, if it isn't Will Johnson or John A. Barron, I'm almost positive it's going to be Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, the guys I want the most are Will Johnson, Kenny Grant, and Malachi Starks. I don't think they're going to go safety that high.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go safety that high. I think that'd be if they trade back, they would take that.
I'm actually pretty confident today, being a week away from the draft. I'm pretty confident Will Johnson's going to be their pick. I really am. I think that's where the stars are aligning. And I do think I think
they have all the intel through Ross, right? So they know he's going to be fine, right?
Well, and I do think Barron's probably going to go above Will Johnson, and that's okay to me, because I get it, because he's a healthier prospect. But I
buddy, Dart's going top 20, bro. Get ready for it. You're not sneaking. It's more like you wouldn't be surprised if he sneaked into the top 10, because there's the Saints. It's legitimate.
they
if Shedeur and Dart are on the that is legit. Yeah, they could. And man, I've heard it, and I've heard it for a while, and I'm the only one who's really actually talked about it. I've heard for a while that the Giants are secretly higher on Dart than they are on Shedeur. That's what I've heard.
I think Shedeur goes pick 21 to the Steelers. I think he's going to fall that far.
I think someone jumps the Steelers.
Yeah, maybe with the Broncos trading up there.
Yeah. I think that's going to, if he starts falling out of the top 10, I think that's going to be the Browns' play.
Yeah, look, I will say this,
because I've heard the Browns are okay. Because I've also heard the Browns are willing to trade up for Dart.
Yeah,
into the first. So I think they would for Sanders.
And if you got Hunter to get Sanders, makes a lot of sense. It really does. It really
does. I know the Cleveland Browns and the Giants have explored the option of pairing them and trading up and pairing them, and it sounds like Joe Sheen and Dabble in New York. They don't want to take a quarterback in the first, but it sounds like the owner is stepping in and saying that's why they're doing these extra visits and everyone's making a big 100%. Deal, because the owner's stepping in and saying, no, we need a quarterback, blah, 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 blah. You guys, and you know why? Because he's probably still pissed off about the Saquon shit,
Yeah, that is a organization that is
dysfunctional.
They are way more dysfunctional than us, which is crazy. But the Giant, that, there is nothing worse than the organizations that don't let their football people do their job, and an owner that comes in at the 23rd hour and starts saying you have to do it.
Tell Dylan you don't want to trade with the Browns because they don't have another first. You want to trade with to someone in the 20s, and you don't want to pick up a first next year. They need the furthest I would trade back is the 18 to 23 range. I wouldn't go any farther back than that.
100%, man. Because here's the thing: is the Dolphins are uniquely positioned to get somebody they shouldn't. We've been talking about this the whole time. You get Will Johnson in this draft, it's like finishing with the 5th overall pick in the draft. Like, it really is.
Well, let me ask you this.
Of a player.
Let me ask you this, okay? You know the Shanahan tree, okay? If you had intel, let's say Membou or Campbell or Will Johnson are dropping to 10, and you've got intel because, remember, they could use either one of those positions in San Fran. You've got intel that San Fran is locked on whichever one of those players is dropping. Would you call Chicago, because I've looked it up, would you call Chicago and offer your 2026 third to move up just 3 spots? Because that's around what the value, you'd be overpaying about 70 to 90 points. But that, would you move up 3 spots just to lock in? Because that's a blue chip player.
Yeah, I would definitely do it. Or I'd say, hey, Chicago, you want pick 13 and Jalen Ramsey, and you can have Ramsey, Jalen Johnson, and Kyler Gordon as your trio of corners, and let's move up. But I would definitely, look, if we trade back to 18 and we still get somebody we want, and we pick them second, that's one thing. I don't necessarily think we need to move out of 13 unless something really knocks our socks off, because I do think you're going to get one of the Michigan boys there. And it would piss me off a lot as a Dolphins fan if Will Johnson was there and we ended up with somebody else. It really would. And if it was same with Kenny Grant, if Kenny Grant's there at 13 and we move back to pick 20 and get Derrick Harmon, the gap between Grant and Harmon to me is very big. So I'd be frustrated in a scenario like that. So I'll be honest, the trade back stuff's fun because you get more picks and then you can fill more holes with a 2nd round pick. I actually want the Dolphins to move up. Oh.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were talking. I thought like breaking news is coming. I was just going to say I'd rather them move up at this point a few spots and get rid of a 3rd round pick in 2026 to get a guy they want, more so than trying to move back and play Russian roulette to make sure a guy falls in your lap. That's where I am. Like, there are teams in that realm that are going to want to move back and still be able to get a player that's kind of high on their board. I heard Chris Greer say this in the presser that we'd move up, we'd move down. It was kind of cliche GM talk, but I'd 150% because I agree. San Francisco is a team that has a lot of the same needs as us. Like, they could go defensive line, they could go offensive line, and they could go cornerback. Don't let a 3rd round pick next year prevent you from getting Will Johnson instead of San Francisco. I think you're muted, man. You might be muted, Reason.
Yeah, you already missed out on Dre Greenlaw because you weren't willing to come up a couple million. You missed out on Wirfs a couple years ago because you weren't willing to add an extra, mid-round pick, and he ended up being a much better option than Austin Jackson from a health standpoint alone. You know what I mean? Like, I just, I don't know, man. I agree with you. It would really hurt if you missed out on Johnson by a guy like Johnson. And can I be honest with you? I think, I've heard Will Johnson was one of Harbaugh's favorite players, right? And I could only imagine how much Stephen Ross loves Will Johnson. Because remember, in 2022 and 2023, not just defensive, Will Johnson was one of the best players in college football. I could only imagine how much Ross loves him, and Ross would probably be real tiffed if you missed out on him by 2 picks because you weren't willing to pay a little bit of a premium.
Well, let's dig into that for a second, right? Because here's the reality on Will Johnson. I've seen people want to play doctor.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
With no PhD and tell me how bad his leg is. 95% of these guys that come into football are battling some level of injury. They play a gladiator sport. You get hurt if you play football. let's just say it. Let's take that and put it on the side for a second. What is one of the biggest problems you have with the Dolphins defense? We don't ever take the ball away from anybody.
Yeah.
We don't get turnovers. Will Johnson is a turnover machine. The guy is like a magnet to the football. He has ball skills, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he can take it to the house.
Electric.
He did it 2 times last year in 4 games? Will Johnson is, to me, like everyone does their draft grades is reactionary. I'll call my shot now. The Dolphins draft Will Johnson, Kenny Grant, or Malachi Starks for me at 13. That's an A+ pick. Like, that's how my board tells it. Like,
I'll do you one better. And I've told people this. Will Johnson is Patrick Surtain level of talent at corner. I'll do you one better. Will Johnson's going to win. If he stays healthy, Will Johnson's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think he's a top 5 corner in football in 2 to 3 years at the next level. I don't see really other than the turf toe and the hamstring that happened in rehab because of the turf toe for overcompensating Neal. He's never had any other injuries. He's never had like ligament tears or anything. I know he had a bit of a bumped up shoulder last year too, but he hasn't had any serious like ligament tears or ACL or anything like that. And Neal, I don't need to see him run the 40. I've watched the film. This guy runs 4.4 on film, bro. And Reason, you know what? Let's say this. He might be making a business
high
decision.
4.4.
He might make a business
decision.
decision.
Yeah, because if your hamstring isn't I've heard his hamstring isn't fully recovered, and that's why he didn't run the 40. But like, look, unless you're gonna run low 4.4s, all you're gonna do, and you know that for sure, all you're gonna do is hurt your stock. So if he's like, my hamstring is still tweaked, I'm a mid-high 4.4 guy anyways. Yeah, okay, what am I going to do? There's no point in doing that.
And don't give me the shit that, like, oh, my God, like, he doesn't love football. This guy's got millions of dollars at stake. He has nothing to prove. Like ask Siobhan Revel if he'd rather be healthy, about to make $9 million a year, or be a second-round pick that's going to make 2. I think we all, as football fans, have become so judgmental that, like, oh, if you don't play because you make a business decision, you don't love the game, but hey, I'm going to take off work so I can take my kid to a wrestling event. You know what I mean? Like, Like, we all make business decisions that's best for us. And it's very hypocritical to say it. And I don't know if Will Johnson did that, but like, if he did, like, I don't fault the man, because we've seen draft prospects lose it all by getting hurt, playing meaningless football at the end of a college season. Michigan wasn't a powerhouse this year.
Yeah.
They already won the Natty. He had nothing to prove. The NFL has a stupid rules in place. You have to play a certain amount of time to get into the NFL. So, like, who knows how injured or uninjured Will Johnson really is? All I go off is what I see when I watch the player in live games and on the tape, and I see a guy who's a top 5 player in this draft that could potentially fall in the Dolphins' lap. And I think he's a complete franchise-changing type of player.
He's unbelievable.
Right, and it's like I've seen people be like, no, give me Jedi Barron because he's healthy. Look, the gap between
Jedi Barron
and Will Johnson, to me, is almost as equivalent as the gap between Ashton Gentry and Omarion Hampton. And people just don't want to talk about it. Will Johnson is a far superior player, and I like Jedi Barron. That's a B at 13.
Yeah, it is.
Will Johnson's an A+.
A+.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's a big difference between the two players. That upside, that lockdown potential that Will Johnson brings to the game, he's a lockdown. The biggest games Michigan
but look what we play. Like, we play a lot of zone and off man. What is he? He's the best zone off man option by far in this class. We don't play a lot of press. You know what I mean? We don't play a super ton of man. Like, he's literally the perfect system fit. That's what people need to realize.
Well, and we have joked about this 8 months ago, and we said when the Dolphins draft in 2025, watch them take a cornerback in the first round, because that's Chris Greer's MO. Maybe part of the reason they're okay letting Jalen Ramsey go is because they know they're going to go get their guy, right? Like, maybe they know they have a shot to get this guy based off intel, based off the board fall. Because here's we know. Can I
be honest with you? I'm wondering if I'm wondering if they. Okay, you know how we're talking about drop offs. You make a good point there, and you bring something up to my attention that I want to put out there. I'm one. I know we know they're high. I know they're high on super. I know, and I think you know, but I know for sure they're high on Kenneth Grant. I'm wondering if Kenneth Grant is a play at 13 because they believe the drop off. Like you look at Walter Nolan, right? Great pass rusher, right? But you see like he's a good run defender, but he doesn't have the upside as a run defender that Kenneth Grant does. He's not the alien athletic freak Kenneth Grant is. Walter Nolan projects where he's going to move more outside towards like 3 to 5, whereas you got a guy like and you don't need that because you have Zach Sealer. Whereas you look at Kenneth Grant, he fills that 0 to like 3, 4-eye role, and you need that more. You need a guy inside out more than a guy that's basic. You need a guy that can move outside in, not inside out, right? And I think I think that will play a factor too. And I think there is a legitimate drop off, bro. I think when you look at upside, the alien athleticism that the NFL likes, I think the drop off from corner is real, like you said. But I think once you get that through that drop off from Travis Hunter and Will Johnson to that next tier, that tier is like that list of players in that second tier is longer than the list of second tier players at defensive tackle in my position. And what I mean by that is this. Like, I think it's kind of similar to wide receiver where you got a lot of solid players. Like you look at, Derrick Harmon and Walter Nolan lead that second tier, right? All right. But then like once you start going after that into like Alfred Collins is like a run stuffer with limited athletic upside, limited pass rush upside. It's not going to be there. You know what I mean? Like you'd be more intrigued by taking a guy like TJ Sanders probably, or hell, maybe even a guy like CJ West than something like that. You know what I mean? The drop off is steep. And then you get into like solid, whereas you look at after the drop off, it's Jahdae Barron is there, right? You look at it. Benjamin Morrison is there. Someone me and you have talked about. If he wasn't injured, he'd be a first round talent, bro. Savon Revel. If he wasn't injured, probably going in the first round. My point is, I feel like there would be more guys in the second tier going in the first round at corner that are going to be in the second round because of injury or whatever the case may be. Is like, I'll give you an example. I heard Trey Amos. There's legitimate first round buzz for Trey Amos.
Buffalo loves him.
Yeah, think about the names we're naming. What are we at? Okay, we're at Travis Hunter. We're at Will Johnson. We're at Jahdae Barron. We're at Savon Revel. We're at Benjamin Morris. We're at Trey Amos. Bro, we're already at 6. You can't name 6 DTs that could potentially go in the first, but you can name 6 or 7 corners that'll potentially. So you see what I'm saying? Like the strength of the second tier, especially at the top of that second tier, is much better at corners. So maybe they're thinking from a value standpoint, okay, if I get Kenneth Grant, I'm getting a tier 1 player, but the tier 2 value players at DT that I'm going at 48 are on much less value than the tier 2 guys where maybe someone slips like Azariah Thomas. There's legitimate first round talk about him too. Now he's more man. Him and Amos are more man. So they're not like, and I don't think, I've heard Savon Revel could go in the 20s.
Oh, I still think Revel finds his way in round 1 with all the needed corner for sure.
But like maybe Benjamin Morrison falls to you, or gets in striking distance for you. That I feel like he would be better than probably any DT option on the board at 48. Neil, I feel like guard option would be a better with Tate Ratledge and Jonas Savaianea than what the DT names might be on the board at 48. Why do you think? Because you look at it, you're starting to get into more like the Alfred Collins at 48. He's far more like one-dimensional, Neil, than Harmon, than Nolan, than, Grant and Mason. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude, look, my big board is Abdul Carter 1, Travis Hunter 2, Ashton Gentry 3, Kenny Grant 4, Will Johnson 5, Malachi Starr 6, Armand Membou 7. Like that's the top 7 guys on my board. Kenny Grant to me is a difference maker. I keep saying he reminds me of a more athletic Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like you need a tone setter on the line. Him or Will Johnson to me are the guys
Home
I
run.
want most.
I agree.
And I don't know how you make it happen. You want to get crazy? Let's just say they get Will Johnson at 13 and
Trade back up for Grant.
I would move back up for Grant in a second. I would trade this year's second, next year's second, and a player to get up to go get Kenny Grant. You walk out with those two Michigan dudes, you've got a with Chop Robinson and Zach Sealer, you got a foundation to a defense for the future. And
problem is, I heard the Chargers really like him. Like I heard he wouldn't get past the Chargers.
Oh yeah, well, and look, Harbaugh recruited him, right? So it's like, it's like, well, yeah, I agree. I think Will Johnson's in that way. I think Colson Loveland's in that way. But like, yeah, maybe I view the team like Denver being a team that's open for business. I think they really want to marry in Hampton, and if he's not there, I think a trade back scenario could be open. And look, I like, it's not my draft capital. My job's not on the line, but Chris Greer's potentially could be. I don't know. I would like to see it, but I think one of those Michigan guys is my dream at 13 when we look at this a week from the draft.
Yeah.
And I think they're both foundational defensive guys. Like I think they're both far and away way better prospects than Chop was last year. And
yeah.
I like Chop.
And I think they're perfect fits, right? Like Kenneth Grant's the perfect fit to pair with Sealer, and Johnson's the perfect fit for our, coverage scheme, right?
Right. And that's where, like, look, those are the two biggest needs on this team. And guard is, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Guard is a need. And I don't like Liam Eichenberg. We think he's trash. But
you can get that at 48.
You can, and you can find maybe someone, like, you could go sign a Will Hernandez or something like that. Like, there's still moves you could go make in free agency. You're not finding a corner the caliber of Will Johnson, and you're not finding a defensive lineman the caliber of Kenny Grant right now. Those ships have sailed. Like, man, I do wish there was a scenario where you could get two. But if I don't even know if I had to pick one. I would say this. I like Kenny Grant better as a player on my board. But I do think when I look at the Miami Dolphins and I look at the depth of defensive line in this draft, I do think that Will Johnson is the perfect pairing for Miami. I really do, man. I like that's a pick I can get behind quickly. Yeah. But either guy is, man. We're like, pick your poison. These Michigan kids, that run that defense had, and Mason Graham's included. Don't get me wrong. I like Mason Graham too. But those three kids, that trio that got Michigan over the hump with McCarthy, sign me up for those dudes. They were different. That defense was different.
Agreed. So what do you think? Do you think Jalen Ramsey gets traded on draft night or after the draft?
I think it happens actually like earlier in the next week. I think the Dolphins are pretty close. You don't go out and announce that at a presser. Like look, Ramsey's only been on the team for 2 years, right? Like it's interesting. I thought it was very interesting that they went out and said, hey, we're shopping this guy. I think it's going to happen. I don't think the capital we get back is going to be crazy. I think this is just a divorce. I think this is a divorce, and it gets messy. I think if whatever draft pick they get, let's be grateful. Because I will say this. You mentioned CJ West. That is a guy that I have circled and starred at the end of round 3, early round 4, is a guy the Dolphins should be all over. Like, I love CJ West at Indiana. If you can – because I will say this. We have a 1, we have a 2, we have that 3. We have 2 4s and 2 5s. I don't really care about those 3 7s. Whatever, you hit gold, you hit gold. I won't mind having another 4th rounder in this draft. And look, you're not going to get a player the caliber of Jalen Ramsey. But look, we've already been announced, and we got time to digest that Ramsey is not part of this team's plans in the future. Yeah. So whatever you can do to offset that, and like the money, it doesn't give us great cap savings this year, but in the future it does, right? And I think it's a year early to get out of it. But yeah, I think it happens, and I do think it's going to happen before the draft. And I also think that Aaron Rodgers, whether he retires or picks for the Steelers, he's going to announce that on the day of the draft, because I think that guy's a media whore and he wants his name thrown out. And I think he's going to announce that he's going to play for the Steelers the day of the draft.
I don't know, man. I'm wondering if some teams are going to wait to see how the first round plays out because of the corner quality I just talked about. They're going to wait to see how that first round and the top of the second round plays out, because I think we're going to see a run on corners in the 20s and potentially at the top, a second run to clean it out at the top of the second round. So I'm wondering if teams, because remember Trent Williams wasn't traded before or on day one. They kind of waited to see how it played out, and then he was moved. I'm wondering if it's going to be something like that, where a corner needy team that misses out on one of those like top 7-8 guys, even Maxwell Harrison, Kobe Bryant, maybe they turn around and say, okay, well, let's see what we can do for Ramsey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think what the Dolphins do at 13 is going to be very telling, right? Like, because
yeah,
I was going to ask you, do you think there's any scenario where Ramsey is on the Dolphins roster week 1 in September?
Not with new money, not without new money.
Yeah, me too. So it's like I think that ship sailed. So I think the Dolphins are going to get something done. I think Greer's, that presser's been 48 hours. Again, I'm a little surprised by how they went about it, but I do think somebody. Look, Jalen Ramsey's still a top 15 corner in this league, right? Like he's still a very productive, good football player. What I like about Ramsey is the guy's not afraid to fit the run, right? He comes up and lights people up. Like there's going to be, I actually think he'll go to a contender, like the Eagles, maybe a Vic Fangio.
If him and Fangio can get along.
The Baltimore Ravens are a team. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a team that could be interested and make sense for him. Like I think that Ramsey's going to get moved for a late 4th rounder, 4-8 to a contending team.
I still think it's going to be Atlanta because of Raheem Morris.
Yeah, well,
and I think Raheem Morris will probably be willing to pay the most too.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are really in play because if you think about where they are in the draft, I don't think they get Barron or Will Johnson, and they a lot of people mock edge rusher to them, but they have a huge need at corner opposite of AJ Terrell.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: do you think there's too many voids on this team right now for us to hope that the draft is going to patch this up and make us a contender?
I do. I think the Dolphins are a year away from getting back to their solid ground. I just think there's a lot of shakiness with the players on this organization. Like they lost Armstead, they lost Campbell, they lost Javon Holland, and I don't think Holland had a great year, but I do think it's still a somewhat of a loss, right? This is a guy 2 years ago. We were, we thought we were going to emerge as a top 5 safety in this league, and it just didn't pan out. Like I even think role players like Durham Smythe will be decent losses if they don't backfill them the right way. But I will say this: my counter to all this is, I don't think it's going to be like one of those miserable rebuilds where the Dolphins are going to be bottom dwellers to have to do this. I still think they're a very competitive team that wins 7-8 games this year, but I think that their rebuild can be very quickly if they hit on draft picks. And I hate to say it, if they get a veteran head coach in here, that changes the culture and increases the discipline. Like I still think there's a lot of talent here, even though there is a lot of holes. But I don't think it's like there's nothing to latch onto. Waddle, Devon A-Chain, Zach Sealer, and Chop Robinson to me are a core you can build around at any time. And then I like Brewer, I like Daniels, I do like Austin Jackson still. I like Jordan Brooks. I do like a lot of the guys they have. I just think they need 2 really good draft classes and start building and developing that back half of that roster. Like we haven't had a lot of depth because we've paid so much cap and draft resources to get the big names on our roster that we've really seen it suffer on, the guys picks, on the roster picks, number 40 to 53 on your roster. We're doing these with journeymen and undrafted free agents. And, sometimes you luck into a Cater Kohu, but then you got guys like Cameron Good on your, you know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
I think for me as a Dolphins fan, I'm really, really excited for next week because they have 10 picks. 7 of those picks are in the top 5 rounds. The Dolphins should walk away with a very, very good draft. And as much as I've been critical of Greer, McDaniel, and everything, I actually think the Dolphins are well positioned to have a home run draft. I have a lot of faith in Chris Greer in this year's draft because he said that this draft really correlates with their needs, and we know it's the trenches. But I also think that his draft and principles of how he values corner won't let him pass on a guy like Will Johnson. So if you get Will Johnson at 13 and do everything else in rounds 2 to 5 to build the trenches, like Jonas Savannah, players that we've talked about that we've liked for months. Like, you leave with that. You said this on last show. I think it was Rhett Lewis had Will Johnson in the first round, Jonas Savaiinaea in round 2. Savaiinaea is my 19th overall player, man. Like, to get him at pick 48 would be highway robbery.
Harmon. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like, so like, I'm just really focused on next week. And, maybe the Dolphins are a team that does better when their backs are against the wall with no expectations versus a team that is, like, they're not the team that does well when you put lofty expectations.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I said this on the show with Doug yesterday. We win every offseason, but then we lose when it matters in the season. Feels like we're losing this offseason. Does that mean we're going to win when it matters this season?
Well, it's a different sport, but Reason, if you would have asked me before the season if I thought the Capitals would have had the second best record in hockey and been a contender in the East, I would have said, dude, you're crazy. But, like, sometimes chemistry changes when you make moves to get rid of players, right?
And I think Tyreek, if you get rid of Tyreek post June 1st, that's a move in the positive direction.
Right. And I also was told that Tyreek necessarily wasn't the guy that they were talking about that was always late in meetings and stuff like that. There's others that are problems there. And maybe getting rid of some of these problems and getting younger is something that will do this team. Because here's one thing we don't talk about. We always talk about these injuries the Dolphins get. Maybe a lot of these injuries are because the Dolphins are putting a lot of eggs in the older player basket, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's a correlation there. So, like, I'm excited to see this team get younger. And, man, like, there is nothing better in the world than sitting there on draft night on your couch. That little jingle hit, din 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 din, and then and then the commissioner comes up with the card and makes the pick. Like, man, like, I don't.
And you're happy with who they pick.
I put my phone on a charger and I turn my notifications off because I don't want to get anything ruined for me. Every pick, man, it feels like that your stomach's on that roller coaster, So I love that feeling in that night. And, man, next Thursday, as always on draft night, it's going to be magical, man.
It's going to be awesome, man.
It's the best it's the best football storytelling of the year. I love watching these young guys get theirs. I love validation to all the work that, guys like us put in when we do our draft prospects. I love the surprises. I mean, it's just, to me, I like it better than, like, the damn Super Bowl. Like, I'll be honest.
Think about this. October, November, flashback. I'm sitting up here with you, Neil. Man, I know it's a pipe dream, but I wish Will Johnson would be on the board when we're picking. Man, I know it's a pipe dream, but imagine if Ted McMillan was on the board, and he's the perfect complement. And now those guys, because of draft exhaustion and overthinking, are actually, like, potentially on the board.
They'll be there. Yeah,
like,
dude,
let's go.
And that's what's amazing. And, like, I used to be one of those guys that, like, there's no way that could happen. There's no way.
Yeah.
The reality is we've learned anything, like, we never know. Larry Tunsil was going to be the number 1 overall pick in a draft, and someone put a gas mask. You know what I mean? Like, shit changes so fast in the age of information.
You excited for Mania this weekend too?
I am. I think the card's a little lackluster. I'm excited. Like, this is it's WrestleMania season. It's hockey playoff season. It's NFL draft season.
Yeah.
Baseball's kicked off. Like, dude, April is the mecca.
Buddy, the Jays are good? What is happening right now?
Orioles are awful. The GM got the best farm system in baseball and didn't know what to do with it. We'll see, man. I know. But it's fun, man. It's like, yeah, I can't. This is the best time of year. I don't have any hot takes for
other than when football season kicks off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think Cena wins?
I do. I think Cena wins. I don't know how you can
Punk
build
win?
to it and not. No, my pick is that Seth Rollins. Actually, there's a big swerve, and Paul Heyman screws Punk and Rollins and goes with Rollins. And the only thing I could see that would happen to Cena, which I think would be badass, but I don't think they can do it because we only know he has a year. I thought it would be awesome if The Rock ended up costing Cena the match, and it was Cody turning heel and selling his soul all along. Someone
said, "What if Rollins joins Cena and The Rock?"
Dude, I think that there is, and I think the third guy on that group could be Drew McIntyre. I think there's a lot of value in them being like a stable for a year. I do.
Yeah, so do I.
But yeah. I think overall it's a lackluster WrestleMania card, to be honest. It feels like an elevated.
You know what? Sometimes when that happens, it ends up being better than you expect. So that's why I'm holding off my judgment
Right.
until I see it, you know?
Right, and the chamber's full with guys that they've been talking with that
Yeah.
could debut and surprise,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's WrestleMania, dude. It's Triple H.
Let's
That guy's
go.
not going to let WrestleMania be a dud. You know that,
Yeah.
like we know
Yeah.
that. So, dude,
So,
it's the best time of the year, man. So,
Yeah.
buckle up. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I mean, look, dude. By the time we get together on Tuesday night, Jalen Ramsey might be on a different team.
It could be interesting. It could be interesting. So here you go, people. Tomorrow I will be live around lunchtime with Kyle Krabs. This weekend I will drop my quarterback big board. All right. Then next Tuesday, me and Neal will be live later at night, and we'll drop our annual mock draft. Wednesday I'll be live with Dudley for episode 4 of the starting lineup. That'll be very draft oriented. We might even do a mock there too. And then on Thursday and Friday, we'll be live for the draft. We'll be covering it all weekend. Tons coming your way. Smash that like button. Over 400 of you in the room. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you on the next one. Fins up all day, every day. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.